Hi, Robin here, and welcome back to Toadstool Tarot. Today I'm sharing with you it's the Arnault Tarot de Marseille deck by Conrad Steyn. Sorry, Conrad Steyn. I'm not sure actually how his name's pronounced. At makeplayingcards.com. It's a beautiful deck and is currently my favorite Marseille deck. It's got a crackleback design on the back, which he's sort of known for. This one is like an eggshell white, which I really love. And it's printed on this sumptuous S30 cardstock from Make Playing Cards. It's my favorite cardstock. It has a nice weight and consistency to it, and just a really satiny, smooth feel. It's just luxurious, I think. It's a favorite. The images aren't what we're used to seeing with Marseille decks. They're not the sort of garish or bold primary colors. They're muted shades. And it has a kind of a almost chalky or milky appearance to the cards. The line work is very sharp, but and very legible, but the tones are muted. You can see the blues have a kind of a blue-gray feel. The greens are a yellow-green, somewhere between green olives and pea soup. The reds are kind of a burnt red or rust red. And here, atypically of the Fool card, his buttocks are exposed, but they're soiled, or I can't tell if it's soiling due to vagrancy, hygiene issues, or whether he's bleeding because of the attack from the little animal there or what. But it's a little different from what we're usually used to seeing. This deck is different from many Marseille decks in that the Papess and the Pope are replaced with Juno and Jupiter. This was done, I believe, to appease the Catholic Church or Catholics who were offended by it. I'm not quite sure of the history, but here you see Juno with peacocks at her feet, and in a couple of cards you'll see Jupiter with an eagle at his feet. I can't tell if they're both in the clouds, these sort of like ball-like texture underfoot, or if it's stones. I wasn't sure if I'd have trouble reading with these cards initially, because I'm used to the Papess and the Pope, and in the RWS, the High Priestess and the Hierophant. But as spiritual guides or references or connections, they both have the stance with one arm up and one pointing down, like the as above, so below symbolism that we usually see in the magician cards and other decks. So that kind of helps me with my interpretation in those cards. Also, I think originally I wasn't sure. I felt like the artwork felt like it was done by a different hand or didn't quite match, but I actually think they do. I think it works. I don't know if he's carrying thunderbolts in his hand or what those little jagged arrows are. That's the Jupiter card. Those are the only two in the deck that have been changed from traditional cards. Here's a minuscule flaw in this deck. There's a little dot and a little line issue here, which at first I thought, misprint. But it's not bad, actually. It kind of looks like a thorn or a stray hair in the lion's fur. And although the red mouth, I'm not sure about. We're not usually used to seeing the red mouth. Again, I don't know the source material for this deck, so I'm not sure how much he changed in the coloration or the any kind of modifications he might have made. I think basically he tweaked the color and gave it an aged effect, but other than that, I think he left it alone probably. Here's a more modest than usual devil. Is that we often see a face in the belly or eyes, you know, in the knees and breasts and belly and exposed genitals, but here it's a little bit more modest. Tower, star. I really love this deck, and I've recently done a top 10 favorites list of my favorite decks, and on it I had at the last minute thrown in 2 recent Marseille decks. One is the Fournier, which has beautiful, warm, friendly colors and a more three-dimensional kind of shaded effect. And the Petici, Vincent Petici, which has a little crisper line work than this and a little bolder colors, but very much in the same palette of kind of like autumn earth tones. But this one actually has risen to the top of my list in terms of favorites. Here we've got the usual printer ID card, the 2 of coins. And these are totally reversible cards, so in some instances I may have dropped or shuffled my cards and I'm not quite sure which is the right direction up and which one down. In the symmetrical ones it won't matter, but in other cards like this, well, I guess this is the right way up, but some of them I'm not quite sure about. And I guess you can read them both ways, whether you do reversals or not, but I guess you'd have to really know the historical differences to be able to tell. So none of these are really showing you what I'm talking about. Maybe I'll hit one later on. Somebody in the comments who knows the history of these decks can tell me why I'm finding in many decks that the labeling on the page of coins is always down the side and not on the bottom like the other card labels. I don't know the historical significance of that. And also I wanted to point out that the font on this is clear and pleasant and not overbearing. It's very small. It's readable, but I mean not too small, but it's not obnoxiously large. Here we have the Ace of Cups. 2. And I guess actually all these cards have numbers on them except for the coins. I think. Was I right about that? Yeah, the coins are unnumbered. The others have numerals on them. I'm finding as I'm collecting Marseille decks now that I'm particularly intrigued not just by the coloring but by the facial expressions, which seem to subtly change from deck to deck. Now here's a case that I noticed in another deck. It's almost like that crown is sitting perched upon a sort of a lopsided pillow of a hat, although what appears here to be a hole or negative space, that white space, in other decks is filled in sort of like a disc, a darker color. So I'm not sure how this appears this way in this deck, but it's a very classy Ace of Wands, just in shaded shades of gray, but really nice. And I love this sort of olive green tone of the greens in this deck. Somewhere between sage and olive green. I was originally going to do this as a side-by-side walkthrough with a version of the Camois deck that Conrad did, but at the last minute he pulled it from his shop. He had some issues he needed to sort out, and I'm not sure if they're going to be resolved or not. I'm thrilled to be lucky enough to have a copy of it, but I don't feel like I'm given the liberty to show it to you, as it had to be pulled. But it has a more citrusy effect, more acidic coloring, which I also like very much. But I think I prefer this over the two decks. And I can't express strongly enough how glorious this cardstock feels. And like I said, I think these have a kind of a chalky, milky kind of countenance to them, but they feel like buttery, slick, satiny cards. They glide really well. They shuffle well. Here's another little minor issue. You can see the line work on the hilt of the sword is not sharp there. It's kind of ghosted out, which at first bothered me, like it was a misprint. I don't know if that's in the original source material or not. I think it kind of adds charm to the deck, that one little minor flaw, the way that Persian carpet makers routinely put an intentional flaw into their carpets. So I'm curious as to what you think of this coloring. Some of you that don't like the usual garish coloring might like this more muted palette. I really love the antique aged feel of this deck. I think it's really well done, and it's my current favorite Marseille. He also has it, I don't know if I mentioned it already, besides the S30 stock that I love, he also has it available now in a plastic version. But make playing cards. Plastic cards are considerably more expensive. I think it kind of doubles the price. This one is a very affordable, I think about $21, and the plastic one's like $42. It doesn't come with a box or a little white book. They just come shrink wrapped. You can buy sort of a la carte separately on their website if you want. either a drawstring purple or black velvet bag to store them in, or a generic tin, or if you scan an image, you can have an image placed on the tin. Can't remember the price of those. I want to say about $14, but I think just the generic blank tins are maybe $3 or $4 a piece, and the bags are about $2 or $3. So anyway, that is the Tarot de Marseille Arnoult from Conrad Steyn at makeplayingcards.com.